Welcome to an hour in church history on Kyriako Waves Radio, where we tell our story together. We continue our series on the essential qualities of the early Christian church by focusing on martyrdom, particularly the martyrdom of Polycarp the Presbyter, as described in a letter from the church in Smyrna. And in this map, we see Smyrna towards the very west of the modern day Turkey on this ancient map of Turkey. And you can see that all of the 7 churches that are mentioned in the book of Revelation were in what is today modern Turkey and part of Armenia. So for those who've always questioned the claim that Christianity started elsewhere, or that Christianity was only part of Europe, we'll begin to realize and notice that Christianity was quite diverse. It was not just in Europe. We had some churches in Rome, in Greece, a part of Corinth and Philippi and Ephesus, while others like the church in Smyrna, Phrygia, Galatia, Cappadocia, and Alexandria, and even in La Libera, these were churches that were outside of the European continent as we know it today, but also remembering that other Christian churches were in Jerusalem, in Syria, Damascus, and many other places other than Europe. So when we talk about Polycarp as the presbyter of Smyrna, we recognize that the church we are talking about is not a European church. It is the universal church, as would claim. But at this point in time, it was not all over the world. It was part Europe, modern-day Turkey, which is by most of the European historians called Asia Minor, in Palestine, in Syria, and in Africa. So we talk about the church in Smyrna and Polycarp and his martyrdom. I'm your host, Kasisi Kyriako Wakenywa. Karibu sana, as we would say. The early church, or the early Christian church, emerging in the 1st century after the life of Jesus Christ, laid the foundation for the global faith community that exists today. Its formative years were marked by a unique set of qualities and practices that not only shaped the faith, but also provided insight into the challenges and aspirations of its members. The recognition of Christ's authority, emphasis on unity within the Holy Catholic Church, and their endurance in the face of persecution provided insights and still provide insights into the challenges and convictions that bound them together. We continue the journey to uncover the enduring qualities and practices that shaped the early Christian church, shedding light on its roots and supplying a deeper understanding of the faith that continues to inspire and guide millions of believers worldwide today. As I've already mentioned, our main focus today, as we continue with our series on the early church, is the story of Martyrdom of Polycarp, widely circulated and preserved in a letter by the church in Smyrna. There's some people who claim an individual having wrote this letter, but the letter itself is general. But we do know the letter as it is presented to us, both in the Greek version and also in the translations. Later, it was definitely written by members of the church in Smyrna. And Polycarp, before his murder, and here we see the image of Polycarp, is a recreation of Polycarp. Before his murder, or unfortunate murder, presided over the church, as we have said, the church in Smyrna. He was the presbyter. He was the elder. By this time, there were no bishops, there were no pastors, there were no apostles. They either were presbyters or deacons. And he was the presbyter. He was the chief elder of the church in Smyrna. That's a church we're seeing in the western part of modern-day Turkey, highlighted in yellow and the red arrow pointing downwards in modern-day Turkey. Ancient Christian historian Eusebius considered this letter by the church in Smyrna essential to record in history. The letter provides a very clear account of the circumstances surrounding Polycarp's martyrdom. This letter described the firmness of martyrs amid great suffering. It also aimed to serve as an inspiration for future generations of believers. The writers of this letter, I believe, targeted a wider readership, and according to the letter itself, they were addressing all of the parishes of what they called the Holy and Catholic or Universal Church in every place, including those in Philomelium, ancient city of Phrygia. And again, we see Phrygia on the map at the center, almost not at the center, but possibly, mid-center or central part of modern-day Turkey. You see Phrygia and the purple arrow pointing down to show you the general region that this letter is referring to, and people not just in Smyrna or other places particularly, they were addressing people in that very particular region of Phrygia. In his Church History, chapter 15 and section 1, Eusebius wrote that Adaveras, Polycarp, with other members of the Christian church, suffered martyrdom at Smyrna. He continued to write that at this time, when the greatest persecutions were exciting Asia, Polycarp ended his life by martyrdom. Eusebius emphasized the importance of Polycarp's death, noting that a written account of it was still extant and should be recorded in history. According to Eusebius, the letter by the church in Smyrna recorded the events that befell the martyrs, describing their firmness amid great suffering. Bystanders were struck with amazement, according to Eusebius, and even the letter itself, when they saw the martyrs lacerated with scourges to the innermost veins and arteries, exposing their hidden inner parts. They were laid upon seashells and pointed spits, subjected to every species of punishment and torture, and finally thrown as food to wild beasts. Despite such abominable acts of violence, the martyrs remained undeterred. For example, an individual by the name Germanicus is said to have been a young individual who distinguished himself by overcoming bodily death, eagerly luring a marauding animal toward himself to hasten his freedom from unrighteousness and lawlessness. Another individual mentioned in this regard is a man by the name Quintus, who had newly arrived from Phrygia that we have already shown, and was overwhelmed by fear and rushed forward with others to the executing tribunal without proper discretion. Unlike Germanicus, Quintus and others who had these hasty actions were viewed negatively, highlighting the belief that martyrdom was a sign from the Lord to stand firm for the gospel, a way to salvation and an inspiration to others. It is recorded that martyrs did not flinch or let a sigh escape as they burned alive, while those who recanted, like Quintus, were considered apostates. Polycarp, whom we are talking about today, seen here as a recreation of his murder, aided the persecution by setting a seal upon it by his martyrdom. This was a testament to the Christians who watched the atrocity, showing that the Lord stood by them and communed with them. In the eyes of the believers at the time, the martyrs redeemed themselves from eternal punishment by suffering for a single hour. The methods of martyrdom including burning at stake, dreadful torture by wild animals, and stretching people on beds full of spikes to lead them to deny Christ, whom they believed. Polycarp himself was arrested after a young man in his company was tortured to reveal his whereabouts. Eventually, the persecutors condemned Polycarp to burn alive after his confession that he was a Christian. The letter by the church in Smyrna detailing Polycarp's martyrdom was initially sent to Marcus with a request to share it widely, as we have seen. And Eusebius, in his history of the ecclesiastical, or the history of the church, preserved a great portion of this martyrdom. This detailed and heartfelt account of Polycarp's martyrdom and the steadfastness of early Christian martyrs offers a profound glimpse into the faith and courage that shaped the early Christian church. We will take a commercial break. When we come back, we will explore further what the letter accredited to the church in Smyrna says about Polycarp's martyrdom. Stay tuned.
You're tuned to Kyriakou Waves Radio, the heart of our community, where stories and voices come together to inspire and empower. This broadcast is sponsored by Optiven Group, Kenya's premier leader in the real estate sector, transforming lives across Africa.
Welcome to the coastal paradise of Kenya, where beauty meets investment opportunity. Nestled in the heart of Vipingo lies a hidden gem awaiting discovery for Kenyans and the global citizens. Ocean View Ridge Vipingo by Optiven. Just a short journey from Nairobi, accessing this haven is convenient. whether you choose to travel by road, air, or rail. With options like Nairobi-Mombasa Highway, flight to Mombasa Airport, or the SGR Mombasa Terminus, your journey is seamless. Situated approximately 30 minutes from Mombasa, 28 minutes from Vipingo Airstrip, and within easy reach of popular destinations like Mtwapa, Sultan Palace, Sun and Sand Beach Resort, Sarova White Sands Resort, and a world-class golf course. Indeed, Ocean View Ridge offers proximity to the best of the coast. But what sets Ocean View Ridge apart are its God-level amenities, from lush trees dotting the landscape to well-maintained internal Maram roads. Every detail is meticulously planned to elevate your living experience. A grand entrance gate welcomes you, while solar streetlight ensures safety and security even after the sun sets. And that is just the beginning. For more information on this unique investment opportunity, contact Optiven on 0723 400 500. Your coastal dream awaits at Ocean View Ridge, Vipingo. Optiven, you know I shine like Optiven, on your property.
Welcome back, dear listener. We are talking about the incredible story of Polycarp, a revered figure in the early Christian history, and one whose unwavering faith and courage in the face of persecution serve as a powerful testament to his devotion to Christ. Let us journey back in time and uncover the events leading to his martyrdom. It is in record that when Polycarp first heard about the impending danger, we are told that he remained undisturbed, persevering or preserving a quiet and unshaken mind. Despite his determination to stay in the city, his friends persuaded him to retire secretly to a nearby farm. There, we are told, he spent his days and nights in fervent prayer, asking for peace for the churches around the world. 3 days before his arrest, Polycarp is said to have had a vision. In this dream, the pillow under his head was suddenly seized by fire and consumed. Upon waking up, he interpreted this vision to those around him, predicting that he would die by fire for Christ's sake. As his pursuers intensified their search, Polycarp moved to another farm, but they soon discovered his location. 2 servants were seized and tortured to reveal his hiding place. Late in the evening, they found him lying in an upper room. Polycarp could have escaped, but he chose to stay, saying, "The will of God be done." It is also recorded that when the captors arrived, Polycarp greeted them cheerfully and with a gentle countenance, amazing them with his advanced age and firm bearing. He is said to have requested his captors for an hour to pray, undisturbed. Thereafter, those sent to arrest him handed him over to Herod, the captain of police, and his father, Nicetas. Both men are said to have tried to persuade Polycarp to acknowledge the lordship of Caesar by saying the words, "Lord Caesar," and sacrifice to save his life. Despite multiple attempts by Irinac Herod and the proconsul to persuade him to renounce his faith and swear by Caesar, Polycarp remained steadfast. He boldly declared, we are told, 86 years have I served him, and he never did me any injury. How then can I blaspheme my king and my Savior. Polycarp was condemned to burn alive. Despite threats of wild beasts and fire, Polycarp's courage did not waver, as we have seen. His remains were collected and honored by the faithful, becoming more valuable than precious stones and gold. As modern-day church, we have quite a lot to learn from these brave Christians. And I want to highlight a few lessons that we can pick from these letters and from the history as recorded by Eusebius. Number one, we can learn the lesson of unwavering faith. We see in Polycarp steadfastness in the face of persecution, which highlights the importance of maintaining faith in all circumstances. As modern-day Christians, we can draw inspiration from this commitment to Christ, even when faced with the threat of death. Christians today can learn to stand firm in their beliefs and values, even when they are unpopular or challenged. And it is not that we do not have examples in our day, in our modern day. We have the example of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who as a Baptist minister and civil rights leader, King advocated with ultimate price of death for racial equality through nonviolent protests, inspired by his Christian faith. Modern Christians can benefit from regular prayers and seeking peace and guidance from God. This teaches us as Christians the power of compassion and forgiveness, even towards those who may wish us harm. Another lesson that we can learn is the lesson of reconciliation and forgiveness from none other than the late South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, seen here in this photo, chaired the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which sought to heal the nation post-apartheid and through truth-telling and forgiveness. Modern-day Christians can learn the importance of building a strong, supportive communities as embraced through Tutu, and also an encouragement to uplift each other in faith, as in the example of Mother Teresa. So as we continue this journey, we see that it is not that we don't have modern day examples, and I'm not negating these examples. It's just a way of challenging us through the lessons of Polycarp and others. Through Mother Teresa, we find an example of and other missionaries of charity. We find in this mission of charity her endeavor and efforts to operate hospices, homes for people with HIV and AIDS, people suffering from leprosy and tuberculosis, as many missionaries of charity have done. Another example is what is known as Habitat for Humanity. This global non-profit organization helps provide affordable housing for those in need, demonstrating Christian values through tangible acts of service. Another lesson that we can learn today is that as Christians, we are reminded of the importance of sharing our faith and being witnesses to the truth of the gospel. Despite human frailty, we see in Hillsong Church an example of a community that used music, art, and culture to engage people around the world with the message of the gospel. Through these Christians again, the ancient Christians, we also learn about the eternal perspective that can help us as Christians prioritize our spiritual well-being over temporary worldly concerns. As Christians, we can prepare ourselves to remain resilient and faithful in the face of adversity, knowing that we are part of a long tradition of believers who have endured hardship for their faith. As Christians today, we can reflect on what these ancient martyrs were willing to sacrifice for the sake of their beliefs and the advancement of the gospel. We have other examples like Stephen Ministry, a program that equips lay people to provide one-to-one Christian care to individuals experiencing life challenges. We also have Compassion International, a Christian child sponsorship organization dedicating to releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. So we see that even from these ancient martyrs, we can take lessons, and many have taken lessons. We can foster a deeper connection to the Christian tradition and a greater appreciation of our freedom of worship that we enjoy today. Courage and conviction is another thing that we can pick from these individuals. Polycarp definitely demonstrated immense courage by refusing to renounce his faith. Polycarp again, and from him we can learn about prayer and spiritual discipline, because Polycarp's dedication to prayers, even in times of danger, underscores the importance of maintaining a very strong spiritual life. We can, as we have seen, learn about compassion and forgiveness. Despite being, captured and facing execution, Polycarp treated his captors with kindness and hospitality. And again, through the images of Martin Luther King Jr., the late Desmond Tutu, and Mother Teresa, and from these early Christians, we see the support of community and support of each other through trials and persecution. We are called to be witnesses and to bear testimony, just as Polycarp was willing to publicly declare his faith and serve as an example of the power of testimony. So I hope that we can learn from this martyr to take up an eternal perspective as we live this life, so that we gain resilience in face of persecution, as highlighted in the realities of ancient persecution. Through Polycarp, we learn about value of sacrifice in his own life rather than compromise his faith. He teaches us the importance of sacrifice in our Christian walk. And if we take this historical perspective and eternal perspective, we may also understand history in a better way. Not only the history of the early Christian church, but its connection with the modern day Christianity and the sacrifices that they undertook. We are going to take another short commercial break, and when we come back, I am going to offer some observations on martyrdom that can help us gain a more balanced perspective as we seek to understand martyrdom in the early Christian church. Stay tuned.
You're tuned to Kyriakou Waves Radio, the heart of our community, where stories and voices come together to inspire and empower. This broadcast is sponsored by Optiven Group, Kenya's premier leader in the real estate sector, transforming lives across Africa.
Hi there, this is George Washiri, Optiven Real Estate, and we are very excited offering you lifestyle of opulence where Vipingo. The property is only 2.5 kilometers off the roads that is being duoed and only 4.5 kilometers from the ocean. We are doing all these roads by compacted manam roads. We shall plant trees around here. The entire property, we are doing perimeter wall. We are developing a fantastic clubhouse, swimming pool, and this is the best gated community, the entire coastal region. What are you waiting for? Just call us on 0790 300 300.
Welcome back. Despite the valuable lessons that we have taken from martyrdom in the early Christian church, we must also accept its complexities, both positive and negative, considering its historical, theological, and socio implications. Here are some of my thoughts that can help us gain a more balanced perspective about martyrdom, so that we may not be caught in the two extremes. And number one, there is the danger of glorifying or glorifying suffering. Positively, martyrdom as a profound witness to Christian faith and commitment can be applauded. It inspired and strengthened faith of the believers. This notwithstanding, extreme glorification of suffering and death can be problematic. It may lead to the perception that martyrdom is the ultimate or the only way to demonstrate true faith, potentially overshadowing other forms of faithful living and service, as we have seen in somebody like Desmond Tutu and also Mother Teresa and groups like Hillsong, Compassion International, and Habitat of Humanity. Courage and resilience of martyrs provide a powerful example and motivation to stand firm in our faith despite persecution. However, witness to martyrdom has the potential again of causing individuals significant psychological stress and fear within Christian communities. It cannot as well foster fatalism. We do know that early Christians were known to voluntarily seek martyrdom to demonstrate their devotion as a guaranteed path to salvation. Unfortunately, encouraging or romanticizing voluntary martyrdom can be very dangerous, in that it might lead individuals to seek out persecution unnecessarily or neglect the value of preserving life and finding ways to live out their faith in less extreme circumstances. Equally important is on the theological emphasis on martyrdom, which can overshadow other important values of Christian faith, such as grace, love, and everyday discipleship that we witness among the Christians of modern day. Focus on martyrdom has the potential of creating divisions between those who are martyred and those who choose other forms of protest, potentially leading to feelings of inadequacy or guilt. Sadly, in later centuries, as we know in history, when the church gained political power, the narrative of martyrdom was in many occasions co-opted for political and ideological purposes, distorting its original intent and significance. It also closes doors in finding ways to navigate and survive persecution. It diminishes, sometimes, the value placed on the human life and has the full potential for coercion and undue pressure to conform to ideals of martyrdom. When we take on the psychological and social impact, we have seen again through martyrdom and volunteerism that even though martyrdom itself was a hallmark of good interpretation and actual participation, a calling of actual participation in the Christian suffering, such stories, to some great extent, can also lead us to confuse our values. Stories of martyrs often united Christian communities, providing a shared narrative of faith and resilience. And therefore, this is a beautiful lesson that we can learn, but also as guarded as we can. Martyrdom played a crucial role in the spread and establishment of Christianity, showcasing the strength and sincerity of believers and convictions. We have also seen that they refused to renounce their faith under pressure. And again, even though it has this profound ethical stand for truth and integrity, it can also be misused. As we wrap it up, we are also invited as Christians to consider other alternatives, to demonstrate and practice faith that do not involve martyrdom, but still embody strong commitment, resilience, and witness to the gospel. For example, as we have seen, engaging in acts of service and charity within communities, this can be a powerful testimony of our Christian love and compassion. Through volunteering, supporting social justice initiatives, and providing aid to those who are in need, we can also proclaim Christ. This may involve organizing community service projects, support local shelters, provide resources for the poor and marginalized. And many are doing it today, but we are encouraged through these narratives that it is not in vain when we give up certain things so that we can provide for others. We can also stand up for justice and advocate for the rights of the oppressed and the marginalized. And this can actually reflect the teaching of Jesus about loving one's neighbor and seeking justice. As a communities of faith, we can participate in peaceful protests, engage in advocacy for such a change, and support policies that align with Christian values of justice and equality. We can also learn from these people that building bridges with people of other faith can also be helpful through dialogue and cooperation, and promote peace and mutual understanding, reflecting Jesus' command to love one another. And I invite you to check out my classes on Kiriako Teaches on kasisifacingmountkenya.com, and you can begin to be introduced into aspects on how we can enter into other people's spaces of faith, people who don't believe things like we believe, through dialogue and cooperation, without giving up your faith, without even giving an inch of your faith, but rather in cooperation reflect the command to love people, all people of the world. And churches can host interfaith events, participate in community discussions, and collaborate with other religious groups on common goals such as poverty alleviation, and peace building. Through the initiatives of martyrdom, we also learn that fostering deep spiritual growth through education and discipleship can equip believers to live out their faith in everyday life. Churches have and can continue offering Bible studies, theological education, by extension, discipleship programs that help members understand their faith more deeply without indoctrinating them and applying it in practical ways in our life today. We can also be encouraged to open and respectful dialogue with the church community about difficult issues that continue to divide us and to build this Sikhism that sometimes, doesn't reflect well for people of faith. This can lead to greater understanding and unity. And this does not mean that you're giving up what you believe. Rather, it's engaging the other, talking to the other, seeing the other individual as a human being. And that way we can connect more deeply while we live our own faith and witness to Christ. Churches can facilitate, and they do, discussion groups, support groups, and forums where members can share their struggles, questions, insights in a supportive environment. We can also provide mentorship and create support network within the church that can help individuals navigate life's challenges with the support of their faith. As a church, we are called to establish mentorship programs, small groups, counseling services, and many are doing it, that offer guidance and support for members. We can also emphasize the importance of nonviolence act and reconciliation that reflects the teaching of Jesus on peace and forgiveness. We are called to teach conflict resolution skills, provide mediation services, and promote initiatives that foster reconciliation within our communities. And most importantly, we can also use our calling and our faith to care for creation and promote environmental sustainability, demonstrating stewardship of God's creation. We can engage in organizing environmental cleanup events, promote sustainable practices, and educate members on the importance of environment care. We can support missions and outreach programs globally, where we can spread the message of love, of gospel, and provide need to those who really are desperate in need, not only of medical issues, but also food, shelter, and care and protection. We can help other missionaries who are busy and actively involved in mission trips, partner with international organizations to continue providing resources and support to the underdeserved communities. Just as we saw in Hillsong, we can unite in using art, music, and cultural expressions to communicate the gospel so that we can engage in creative and meaningful way. As a church of Christ, we can continue hosting concerts, art exhibitions, and cultural events that celebrate and express faith through various forms of creativity. By embracing all these alternatives in our modern day churches, we can actually live out our faith in an impactful and sustainable way, reflecting the love, justice, and peace of Christ in the world today. Thank you for tuning to Kyriako Waves Radio. Until our next broadcast, continue enjoying great music, preaching, and interviews brought to you by Kyriako Waves Radio. Thank you, and God bless.
You're tuned to Kyriako Waves Radio, the heart of our community, where stories and voices come together to inspire and empower. This broadcast is sponsored by Optiven Group, Kenya's premier leader in the real estate sector, transforming lives across Africa.
Hi there, this is George Washiri, Optiven Real Estate, and we are very excited offering you lifestyle of opulence where Vipingo. The property is only 2.5 kilometers off the roads that is being duoed and only 4.5 kilometers from the ocean. We are doing all these roads by compacted manam roads. We shall plant trees around here. The entire property, we are doing perimeter wall. We are developing a fantastic clubhouse, swimming pool, and this is the best gated community, the entire coastal region. What are you waiting for? Just call us on 0790 300 300.